another conversation for the Dental Mastermind Group. And today is an interesting topic to me because I am starting to get closer to that magical age of Medicare. And I remember my mom always telling me, we can't retire until both of us get to Medicare, because that was the gospel. But it brings into conversation, why isn't my dental care covered? That when I become 65, just like, oh, it will be better with my health care, somewhere along the line, dental isn't there. So what I wanted to have a conversation today to talk a little bit about what is going on and why the ADA has some concerns about whether or not Medicare should cover dental coverage. And I'm going to throw that out to our group if anyone wants to start us off. And John looks like he wants to start us off. So John, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, actually, I do. You know, healthcare in general is a huge chunk of the GNP. I mean, healthcare is a huge beast to tame. And one of the things that I think we've seen in the last few years is we've seen the end of the family practitioner. You know, we don't have too many general practitioner physicians anymore that are, you know, hanging out a shingle and being with themselves. Almost everybody that I know works, you know, for a hospital, or they work in the big machine, as I like to call it. And one of the advantages of that machine is that they have these sources of revenue. I mean, you know, like dozens of hospitals and all these things that bring in money. And so if the government says that you have to charge X for a procedure and you are, you know, legally bound to take that, they have a better way to absorb those costs than a private practitioner dentist. You know, if somebody came to me and said that your crowns are now for everybody 65 and older, we'll reimburse you $200 and that is all you can charge. I think actually healthcare in dentistry would suffer from that. And I think a lot of it is, I mean, I think the reason that the ADA is opposed to it is because of that ability of big healthcare to absorb hits to cost. But private practitioner dentists don't.
Any other thoughts? Anyone on this call right now who is for wanting Medicare to cover dental? Okay, I'll be that one person. But Jeff, what are your thoughts on this issue?
Yeah, I would say one of the things that is not lost on any of us is that our primary obligation is to care for people, right?
Yes.
No matter what their age, no matter what their socioeconomic background is, when we signed up for this, we said that we would, you know, it's all the same stuff in the Hippocratic Oath, right? Like, do no harm and take care of people and do this job with integrity. And I think and when we get out of school, that's kind of the, you know, the wide-eyed, you know, bushy-tailed kind of view of things is like, we're going to help the world and hopefully pay off some student loans. And the hardest thing about some of these decisions comes from the fact that I think what I was certainly most surprised at is the amount of all this that turns into running a business. You know, I love the idea that I wish I could do free dentistry for everyone, but I don't have a way to pay for our staff or the rent or the internet or any equipment. And what John's kind of alluding to is at some point there is a base cost, a minimum cost for this. And it seems like as a general trend, a lot of where these programs, while they certainly help a larger number of our community, don't compensate at a level that would be commensurate with what we're doing in terms of quality of care. And we don't want to compromise that, right? It's not just about like, well, I don't want to compromise how much I take home every year. It's more like, I can't physically get a denture made by a lab near me for less than I'm being compensated for. We've run into this with different insurance companies where ultimately the decision was to not be part of the network anymore, because literally, like, what we were being told we could charge or be compensated for, the actual base cost, like, is basically me and my family and our budget was subsidizing these
Yeah.
procedures because it just didn't cover it. And that would be the worry. Do I love the idea that we could give better access for the generation ahead of us who's already worked so hard for their lives to give back in a way that provides great dental care for them? I love that. But how do we do it without burdening new graduates with that responsibility?
Who are already, an average of what, $325,000 in debt before they walk out the door.
That's before graduation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But isn't it, when you look at regular medical doctors, aren't they saying the same argument, but yet some of them are accepting Medicare? How is this any different? Wouldn't they find, Chad, a reimbursement rate? They had to figure something out with medical doctors, or is it just that it's a mix of the insurance and all the variables?
So dental insurance is a completely different animal than medical insurance,
Mhm.
I mean, and that's the thing is yes, it sounds attractive, and it sounds attractive to a greater population of people to have Medicare include dental care and us accept it. However, the facts remain the facts, is that what they're paying for the dental portion of Medicare is a drop in the bucket compared to what they're paying it for the medical portion of Medicare. And additionally, the payouts for dental are maximized. They're going to be 500, 1,000, 1,500. We don't know what that's going to be, but that's per year. And once it's done, you're done, yet you still have to accept the rate if you choose to provide Medicare in your office. So when you're comparing dental insurance to medical insurance, you're not comparing apples to apples. You're comparing apples to a peanut. And it really is the dental insurance aspect of it, of any provider, United Healthcare, and I'm not singling anyone out, but United Healthcare, MetLife, Delta, Cigna, so on and so forth, Medicare, it's a drop in the bucket compared to what the payout is for medical.
Mhm.
And we're very, very limited. And so I don't know that there's going to be a huge like rah, rah, rah. I get it from the people that are Medicare subscribers. And I can't wait for you to get to the question of how is it going to affect your practice? Because I've thought through this quite greatly. It really depends upon the demographics of your practice as well. But it's just totally different than the medical provider. They just released, I think it was yesterday I saw it, but they released the salaries of medical care providers across the United States. And I would say that their lowest salary is much higher than the average salary of the dentist. And if this takes effect, that can lower the average salary of a dentist even more greatly. So I think there's a lot that we have to look at, and there's a lot that we have to understand prior to, taking this on.
Any thoughts, Jamie? Because you come from a different perspective than the dentists and the small business owners over here.
A little bit. I totally, absolutely agree with the fact of the reimbursement rate. I've done enough with front office management, billing, insurance stuff to realize that, there is a lot that makes that practice go round and that practice be functional. Our patients and a lot of our dental providers don't accept Medicaid because of the low reimbursement rates, and they can't do that and still pay their bills. And I think Medicare, as it stands now, if they look at this reimbursement rate, granted, that's one of our most at-risk populations. How many of these elderly come in and they have a medication list 2 pages long, and a mouthful of dental treatment that's been patched and repaired and needing more every time they see you? You can't take those low rates to restore that the way it should be and still be operational. But from the other perspective, absolutely, this is our at-risk population. This is a generation that has worked really hard their entire life, and now they're trying to figure out how to just get the basics of dental care. living on that fixed income.
So my question to all of you, what's the answer? Am I supposed to like, okay, hope that if my car accident and I'm in need of some work and then I've had an injury that now maybe it might be covered if it's somehow related to a medical procedure or illness? I mean, what would the answer be if you could change things? I mean, to me, it sounds like reimbursement is a big issue. That, you know, there's quality of life, like Jamie's referring to, as we're getting older, and if you need dentures, and how are you going to be able to eat if you, you know, if your teeth have to be removed or whatnot. So what ideas do we have? Because obviously, if the ADA has not been supportive of it right now, my guess is that there's still meetings and conversations and reworking and seeing what path to go, because the need is still there.
Well, outside of a nonprofit, what's the goal of any corporation? And the goal of any corporation is to be profitable. So for the insurance company to be profitable, they need to drive up the cost to the consumer. And if they drive up the cost of the Medicare to the consumer, then they can drive up the payouts and it will help the dentist. Reimbursement rates have changed over the years, but the annual maximums have not changed over the years. In order to change the annual maximums, they're going to have to drive up the rates to the consumers. They can fill their bucket and then they can start filling our bucket. And I don't know that we're going to see that change because we haven't seen it change really since the 70s. I mean, John, Jeff, Jamie, do you all agree?
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
And so, you know, in order for them to be profitable, they're going to make it off of the people that don't go to the dentist and off of their rates. And so if you increase Medicare, you're going to increase the number of people that go to the dentist. So that's going to not really help them. And the only way to do it is to increase their cost to the consumer, which is the Medicare participant.
Right. I think that's the that's probably the hardest thing about this issue is that, I mean, Chad brings up a great point. I mean, the landscape of insurance company hasn't changed very much to the point where already like at least internally in the office here, we look at dental insurance as more like Groupon. You know, I'm going to give you $80. Here's $1,000 per year. Here, you know, like, so I'm going to spend this much and I'm going to get this much dentistry for it. And as Chad brought up, that's if people even use it, right? And so this is the tricky part is we all want to participate, but we don't want to compromise our care. You know, we've seen companies like Delta Dental do that, where they do a combination of charge higher in premiums, but reduce compensation to the dentist, which is basically still net more profitable, right? But in the end, that forces dentists into making compromised decisions. And this is what we've seen. And you know, all of a sudden your $300 filling is now $89 of compensation. So you can't even produce enough per hour. So does that, and this is what we see happening in other offices, not to point fingers, but now this person all of a sudden needs 8 fillings because if I'm only going to get $89, I may as well make my hour worth it because I'm not going to book 1 hour for one $89 filling. There's no way we can keep our doors open for that. So then we see a compromise in quality, right? So that's what everyone's really afraid of. It's not just the cash, it's what kind of dentistry are we going to be able to offer up to people? And this unfortunately has become just this huge, this is more about politics than dentistry to me in a lot of ways, right? What's our social obligation to the people in our community? And how does that affect it? Well, it's nothing to do about their teeth. It's whether or not people think we should be helping each other. Because you could come up with 100 different plans, right? You could do a direct reimbursement thing. You could say like, okay, you could, you know, build in the Medicare coverage as a better tax credit, you know, like, hey, everything you spend will be a tax credit to you. There's ways to do this that aren't just like, here's a bunch of cash at the problem and not pay everybody enough. Like you can make it commensurate to whatever their need is, doing programs like that. But then that becomes now this political agenda, right? My biggest worry of answering this question is it kind of is going to depend on who's in the White House. And that's not taking sides. That's more like our country is becoming more polarized, and whether or not, we should keep what's ours or live in community as good citizens with each other, right? And I'm not telling you where I stand. You probably guess. But that's what I think. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think we have an obligation to our fellow humans to take care of them. We went to school, we have a unique set of skills. It's our job to protect everybody, but I gotta pay bills at my house too.
Right.
So I hope this solution moves away from politics and more toward people and caring for those people.
It just reminds me, growing up in a family, my dad was an ophthalmologist and he predominantly had a Medicaid and Medicare based practice. So he was not the high paid, big lifestyle type of a doctor. And it was, to be able to meet the needs of the population. But the reimbursement was something that we grew up always hearing about. And that's what this kind of reminds me of, is that is a legitimate issue as to how you're going to cover your costs and, have a lifestyle that you're comfortable with. John,
Well,
you wanted to say something?
yeah, I was going to say, and it's not only about dentistry. I mean, we need to figure out a lot of this as a society. I mean, I'm sure that Jamie now works in the industry of teledentistry and telehealth. And that is going to skyrocket soon. I mean, we are about to see I call it a gray tsunami. There are a lot of folks that are going to need help. One of the things that I've learned in the last about probably 3 years is my dad is now, he's 90 and I believe it's 90 and 8 months now, because it's like being a child. When you get to be 90, the months start to count, just like 90 and a half, 90 and 7 months.
I think it's 100, John.
Yeah.
At least when Willard Scott was 100. Now it was like 115 because everyone lived to 100.
Is your dad on a Smucker's jar, John?
No, I wish he was.
Then he's good.
He's
he's
well,
90.
he's actually, we put him in hospice a couple of weeks ago, and
I'm sorry, buddy.
oh, that's okay. It's just, but,
Yeah.
but the thing is that I've seen my dad move into skilled nursing, and they have trouble finding enough people to work in the facility that he's in, which is not a large facility, but they're understaffed. And they, the people that are there, God love them, they do a great job, but there aren't enough of them. And to walk the halls of that place and see those folks that worked so hard all their lives to take care of us, and it's only going to get worse. And we need to figure out a way, one of the things that I've noticed is understaffing. Because of that, dentistry is really kind of a second citizen in those situations, because they've got all these other big health things to deal with. And so we need to figure out a lot of how do we deal with this aging population, not only with dentistry, but we're going to see a situation of, can we even just in basic ways, take care of our older population? I mean, one of the things, they talk about at my dad's facility is we're just one step from a hospital, which they are, but they are oftentimes at capacity as far as like number of residents, but really struggling to even fill the work roles of, the folks that provide the care. And so this is all, I think dentistry is a small part of this whole aging American puzzle that we need to solve.
I think very well said. As we're closing and putting together our closing thoughts about it, are there any action, anything that you could recommend for the people watching this recording? Chad.
I really want to see before I think we've jumped to a lot of conclusions tonight. I think a lot of them are based upon our experiences with other insurance companies and especially other government sponsored insurance companies that have traditionally lesser payouts. But I think that I would encourage us all before we really just try and rationalize our thought process. Let's see the payouts. Let's see what it's going to be. Let's see how it's going to affect our bottom line, because Jeff is right and Jamie's right. John, you're not right.
It's okay. I'm used to
no,
it.
I'm teasing.
He was right last time.
I think everybody realizes that we do have a responsibility to our patient, who is the center of our practice, and they're the ones that keep the lights on regardless. And we need to see how it's going to affect us all. And one of the biggest concerns that I have, and I think that this is just with some of the things that happened with Medicaid, especially in the state of Texas, is I have concerns that there's going to be loopholes, and loopholes create fraud. And I worry about that, not amongst, my particular practice, but amongst our colleagues. I think that there's going to be people that are really going to be able to do very well when this happens. But is it ethical? Is what they're doing ethical? I think we've seen a lot of that in the past, and that's what really concerns me. And I also am concerned about when this is offered, are we going to be taking advantage of, and I think we're safe to say, the elderly in this instance, because a lot of these people are going to be up there in years and think this is the greatest thing. And so there's a lot of concerns that I have coming down with this, but we haven't seen the payouts. So.
Okay. Jeff, any closing thoughts of yours?
Yeah, I appreciate, Chad, you always have a lot of wisdom as far as like before we panic, let's kind of see what the future holds, because I think, the solution is there. And I think what my worry is, and John kind of alluded to this too, is my worry is that if we do nothing, that's not great either.
Mm-hmm.
Right, we're leaving ourselves kind of open to either fraudulent type of things, or some of our friends and family getting just ignored and left behind. Right, so I agree, we need to push forward and keep doing our best to figure out what might actually make the biggest impact, because it's the tsunami you mentioned, John. I think, yeah, at least in California, we're seeing that just in dentistry. We could use another 2 hygienists, but they're hard to come by. And that's just teeth, right? That's not working in a really, some nursing home facilities sometimes it's a demanding job. It's a heart-wrenching job, and it's not for everybody. So how do we find more people to do that? Well, one thing is maybe paying more money. Like cost of living type stuff. So anyway, I think it's just another reminder we need to keep driving this forward so that we don't get left behind on the back end of all this.
Good point. And Jamie, your thoughts?
John, Jeff, Chad, you guys have all brought up phenomenal points. This is such a hard topic in so many ways, because we don't want, our loved ones, we know this population needs care, but we also have to make it where it's a viable business model for practices, whether they're independent practices who can't absorb the loss of revenue, maybe like a big DSO organization may, when they build some of those patients in. And as a hygienist in a room full of dentists, it may be, when I say that maybe we need to look at some of those other ways we can bring care to them too. It's not profitable for you to go directly into those care facilities. But what about if you can find that hygienist who wants to go do those evaluations, those initial treatments, and connect via teledentistry? John, you said, it is really going to be kind of the wave of what's coming down the road. And that may be another model to consider for many practices.
I think we need a group hug.
I think we do.
Oh, I'm feeling it, Jan. John, do you have any closing comments on this?
I said we're only living longer, and we need to take care of each other. I mean, one of the things that I think is, I mean, that's kind of what we're put here to do, I feel, is to take care of one another. And that's one of the best things about dentistry, is the fact that you get to know people so well. You don't just spend 5 minutes with them and, do a quick diagnosis and leave. You get to actually spend some time with them. And I don't have the answer to what this is, but I'm more than happy to help somebody, who wants to figure it out or tries to figure it out, because I think what we've kind of said tonight is if we don't do something, if you choose not to do nothing, you've still made a choice, and we can't choose to do nothing. But at the same time, you can't expect, if everybody wanted to pay $500 for, for an F-150, Ford wouldn't be in business too long. So we need to get this figured out. I don't have the answers, but I'm willing to chip in and do, what I can if somebody wants to call. But we got to get something figured out, because we've got to take care of these people.
Well, I think you all make some very good points. And I think from my end of looking at it as the patient, that it's always interesting in having these conversations, because my perspective is, yeah, get it on Medicare and I'll have this expensive mouth of mine taken care of. And then I sit in and I listen to you folks, and I listen to, particularly when we have other disciplines on, like Jamie, that it's a different perspective. And most people, I know the audience is dental professionals, but it might be a front office staff person or a hygienist who is watching this, that they're not privy necessarily to those conversations in why yay or nay for Medicare. And so I want to thank all of you for being so open. And I think the general consensus is conversations need to continue on. And there is a big political aspect to all of this, but in the end, hopefully we'll be able to figure something out so that our aging tsunami population, like me and John, I just get a little help, that we down the road, we're taken care of as well for our dental needs. So thank all of you for coming tonight and for talking with me.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Lee.
you.
Thank you.